No one in this world can you trust. Not men, not women, not beasts. This you can trust.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Glory of Golden State Gaming. I'm your host, Swamp Swimmer, and with me today is Vespacian. And guess what, Vespacian? It is part two of the points balance patch update, whatever you want to call it, 2023. And today we get to go over Highborn Elves. We get to go over Demon Legions, we get to go over Beast Herds, we get to go over Infernal Dwarves, and lastly but not least, Dwarven Holds. Are you excited?
Very, yes. Very excited about the Highborn Elves especially.
Yeah, we've both taken a look at this before. You know what, why are we even wasting time? Let's jump into it. Hold on 1 second here. Get everything ready to go. There we go. Highborn Elves. This is some good stuff. So previously in part 1 we went through the rule book, the Arcane Compendium, and 4 or 5 different army books. There were some big changes. In these 5, it's not so big of changes, but they're still interesting, and probably the biggest amount of change is here in the Highborn Elf book. I'm just going to scroll through these pages and let's just talk about it, Vespacian. You probably know better than I do about all this stuff. But the first thing I'm seeing...
Yeah, let me tell you a little bit about kind of because I'm community support for Highborn Elves, so I've been involved in the process kind of along the way. And there was a data gathering process for the non-lab books where you were supposed to identify problems that could not be fixed by points, right? So this is not external balance, right? My book is better than this book and we need to adjust it. It's this entry, you could make it cheaper or more expensive, whatever, based on how powerful it is, but it will never be fixed by points. So meaning you need to open up the design book and rethink about the entry, right? And so we gathered information both internally to the Highborn Elf community and also externally from players of other books on what those items were. And essentially they boiled down to a few key ones, and you'll see that coming across here. So one was, unsurprisingly, the Master of the Cranic Tower. Right? Another one was a little bit more of a holistic issue, which was the fact that the character section in the Highborn Elf book is sort of constantly the same. You always see very similar choices. Right? Yeah. And so rethinking that, the fact that there was an overcrowded mounts section, so kind of a conglomeration of issues centered around the character section being sort of too full and not utilized in a balanced way, right? So repeatedly seeing the same builds. Those were 2 of the main ones. And so when we dig into this, you'll see a lot of the bigger changes are related to those. Another one was Seaguard. Right? Seaguard are either amazing and in every list, or they get nerfed by points and all of a sudden you never see them again, right? So there was a few things that came up with this, that the Phoenix's Rebirth rule was another one that was seen as, could use some streamlining, not fun for opponents. So you'll see as we go through this, what all this means. But that was the approach and the issues you're trying to address.
Okay, so the first new rule here for the universal rules is Meeting of the Minds, and this is the dragon model part gains channel 1. And from what I can tell in the book, every dragon in the book channels 1 now. Interesting. So that's dragon.
It's with dragons across all the army books. This is the implementation for Highborn Elves, and the guidance was, wanted it to showcase the magic affiliation of the Highborns and their dragons, and how the dragons kind of help contribute to that.
Makes sense. Just the Dragonforge armor goes to a 3-up. This is a game wide, all 2-up against flaming attacks are going to 3-up against flaming attacks. Let's see, hereditary stays the same. So the honors, this is where we see some changes. Master of the Cranic Tower What was the sworn rule?
So this was the basically use a great weapon, but you still get lightning reflex, right? Lightning reflex plus
So
one.
he loses that.
Swordmaster's rule.
Yeah. He's still an adept. He still has 2 spells. He's still protean magic. He loses the attribute is always the druidism attribute. Now it's just every spell is that attribute, whatever it is. And it's same.
This is probably one of the biggest changes in the book. Maybe across books. I mean, this model was seen in almost every list. And the ability to heal, sort of reliably heal, was a huge factor in why.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where one of the issues in the High Elf book and Highborn Elf book, and also the change to Druidism intersected, right? And so there was an opportunity to rethink this, and this is what the team came up with.
It's interesting. It's not a huge change at all. It's just kind of, it takes away that healing factor that this, no matter what spell you got off, that you got to heal off also. But you also get the attributes back from the regular spells. So I think it's a trade-off. 150 points, is that up or down?
So that's a significant drop. And I think there's no question that this is a peak power level drop for this model. The ability to reliably heal with expensive models like characters, griffins, dragons, stuff like that, phoenixes, was very powerful. So this went from 200 points to 150.
Wow.
So it's a pretty material drop.
Big drop.
I think no question a peak performance reduction for this model, but came with a pretty nice price reduction as well.
Okay, so that's I think the other honors here are pretty much the same, just kind of clarifications, nothing crazy. But
the fleet officer one is an interaction with the change made to the Sea Guard, so we can talk about that later. And then the other big one is in the Order of the Fiery Heart.
Yeah, well, first of all, the Asphet Scholar. No, this is the same. It's just rewording it. Never mind. Order of the Fiery Heart. Go ahead with Order of the Fiery Heart.
So this is where the biggest change I think to the book came, which was the removal of the young dragon mount entry entirely. So it was taken out entirely and actually moved over to be a new entry in the Ancient Allies section. Right?
Oh man, spoiler alert, spoiler alert.
Dig into what that looks like later, but you can see here now the changes that were made. So there is no more young dragon mount for the Order of the Fiery Heart mages anymore.
Yep.
Or for any other character.
Yep. Okay, let's keep going down the list here. Magic items seem the same except for Ring of the Pearl Throne. What was that before?
So it had a similar effect before, in that it shut down multiple types of enchantments. Now has been narrowed down to only weapon enchantments.
Okay.
This was another one of those items on the list for changes. This was an item that was not often seen. It kind of continually fell in price, and so I think that what the change here kind of narrows its focus, specializes it a little bit more, and came with another price reduction. May potentially over time see more, but I think that with the narrower focus, I think that the rules teams and the design teams feel like maybe they can get a little bit more aggressive with this item. So this is a change. It also now can be taken on construct. So Lion Chariot Prince is a good example of a model that really could see use. But it's important to note it also shuts off the bearer's weapon enchantments, so you can't take any weapon enchantments essentially.
Yeah, but you hit the point on the head. If it's the lion guy, the lion guard on a chariot, he's still getting the multi-wound.
Yeah, I think that's the use case for this item.
Yeah.
So it could be interesting to see what people come up with there. It's 40 points, relatively cheap, could fit into a lot of builds, right? So.
All right, keep moving on, moving on, moving on. So I'm just gonna keep scrolling down here until I get to the mounts. Elven horse.
Yeah, so there's one change there with, this is consistent, like, so all these sort of 50 by 50 large cavalry mounts, like the Pegasus, the Giant Eagle, I've got hard target. So it went up in points a little bit, but I think that's a nice boost to a model that was basically never seen. Nobody ever mounted their characters on Giant Eagles,
true.
at least not frequently.
True. So as you said, young dragon's still here.
I think that's just a myth. That might be a type. We got draft versions of this, right? So there aren't any characters that can be mounted on a young dragon anymore.
Okay. So we just have the regular dragon, who has Meeting in the Mines. He's a little bit slower on foot. He's 714 now. They're both 714. And then the ancient dragon is basically what he was before, but now he can channel 1, which is still awesome.
Yeah, so there was a little change, very minor. So the dragon's ground movement used to be like 612.
Yeah.
Now they just made them all consistent, 714. The ancient dragon used to have March 16. They brought that back into line to be consistent. That's a tough change on a model with 100 by 150 base. I'll be honest, I've played this model a lot, as watchers of the channel will know. That's going to be a tough change, but adding channel is a nice bonus, right? So we'll see where that one settles out.
Yeah, I agree. Keep going down here. No changes. Core, no changes except for Seaguard. So go ahead and tell me about the Seaguard changes.
So Seaguard used to have that cover volley rule that allowed them to stand and shoot on behalf of other units within a lot of constraints. The rule used to take up like half this page. That's been removed. No question, that's a peak power reduction for this unit, but it got some nice additions. So marine training, so now can shoot from every rank. I think is quite interesting now, because now you can go in a deep formation that might allow you to be a little bit more effective when you actually get into combat and still shoot. And so I think that's a nice change that opens up maybe some slightly more aggressive play styles with this unit, and lost a rule that candidly was making the Seaguard really expensive. So you can see they've now fallen back down quite a bit in terms of points. It's a pretty big impact. I think a 30-man unit is falling by like I don't know. Like over 100 points. So it's a big change.
Okay, cool. I mean, I'm okay with that. That just basically means your big, deep units, you're 5 wide by 10 deep or whatever, by 6 deep. The whole thing can shoot, which is a little scary, but it's crazy. It's not crazy. It's just regular bows. So I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. It's a good change.
Yeah.
Moving on. Flame Warden's got a little bit of a point change.
Yeah, so the removal of the rending banner. This unit was basically always seen with the rending banner, so they got a nice points reduction. Also prevalence, they were hardly ever seen.
Yeah.
Knights of Rima got a nice little boost. So basically took away dev charge +1 and just gave them base 2 attacks.
Yeah, just gave it to them. Just gave it to them all the time.
Yeah. So they can grind a little bit better, which is nice. So that's been a complaint in the community for a long time. So it's a little tweak there, but I think a welcome one.
They definitely needed that. Yeah, I agree.
Also got cheaper because of the Highborn save reduction.
Yeah. Phoenix, big change here. Go ahead.
So the rebirth rule, I'll just simplify it for you. Essentially, you get the points for the Phoenix if you kill it, even if it comes back.
Okay.
So in every way, the rebirth rule, kind of functions the same. But what was frustrating was, hey, I killed this thing and then it came back with 1 wound, and then somebody healed it right back up with 1 more wound, and I didn't even get any points for it. Right?
Yeah.
So some changes, some streamlining to realign to the new summoned, mechanics and things like that have been added in. But ultimately, what it means is you lose the points if you kill the bird. Which I think also came along as a result. That's obviously a peak power reduction that came along with some nice points reductions, right? So the Phoenix was 340, now 330. and the Warden's bond now down to 45. So I think some hopefully, some nice flexibility in terms of lists with this, even though it's a nerf peak performance for the book.
And the Fire Phoenix went to a 3-up against Flaming, which again, game-wide. And no other changes, really. Interesting. And then a new entry. The Initiate of the Fiery Heart.
Young dragon that got moved into Ancient Allies. Yeah.
And it's a 0-2.
So this is cool. Fans of the channel know I'm a dragon fanatic, right? So this is pretty cool. We can have little dragon mages flying around, which is really nifty. The model itself is the young dragon, right? So it's got a 3-up armor, 4 wounds, res 5, flaming attacks. It's lost some of the peak performance of the mounts, right? There was some triggering off of spells being cast, things of that nature. But it channels 2, right? So you've got Meeting of the Minds and an Adept on top, right? It doesn't come out of the character section. So, the thinking behind this change was streamline mounts and shift the character section of the Highborn Elf book, right? If you can now take, a caster outside of characters, what can you do with your character section differently, right? So hoping that this change introduces some variability, a move in the sort of standard list for Highborn Elves.
I think it's interesting. It's going to be a really interesting piece, and also you can get pretty crazy with the dragon models in your army, which is, I think, a fun change. And you're right, taking magic out of the character section, which most armies can do, Highborn Elves can do now, which is cool.
Yeah, so they were previously, I think, one of only 3 armies that couldn't in the entire 16.
Yeah.
And yet was supposed to be one of the strongest for Magic, right? So I think that realignment feels right, feels appropriate. This thing is also not like a huge combat threat, right? 4 attacks, strength 5, weapons. It's
without the character on it. It's not as crazy,
right? So right.
Yeah. Let's keep moving. I think that's all the changes here. Sky Sloop, Queen's Guard, Grey Watchers. Yeah, everything's the same. That's the book. Just Vespasian, quick 2-minute overview. What do you think? How do you think the book ended up? Will you be playing it more now? You were playing a lot of Sylvan Elves recently. What do you think? Overall thoughts?
I'm really excited. I really can truly say I'm pleased with what the project did and was willing to think about doing in this change. I think it will achieve, I hope, will achieve the objective of increasing list variety. So I think that we'll see that. I'm excited to try things out. Looking now that we've got the points, can start building some lists. You know me, Swamp Swimmer. As soon as I can get as many dragons on the table, the better, right? So we'll see. But I'd love to get some games at some point with this new book. Yeah,
I'm excited to see Highborn, the Vespasian Highborn Elves back on the table. So I'm excited for that. But now let's jump on to the Demon Legions. This is also an army you play. The task of simplifying the rules. I'm excited to see what they did to this book, because it was a very complicated book as far as naming. Let's just start down the list. So this Immortal Denizens is the +1 to cast when you use 2 or 1 or 2 dice. That's just cleaning up the rules here. This is cleaning up the rules. All right, new attack attributes. Smother. If the attack is allocated toward a model that is the same height as the attacker, it gains +1 hit, +1 wound.
Well, you actually skipped over a bigger one just above it. So remember how there used to be that greater dominion where you would say, okay, based on this greater demon, this.
You can extend the buff to the whole unit. Now it gets to rerolls its ones.
One effect.
Yeah.
Reroll 1s for Aegis save, right? So this is a huge streamlining, right? that was something that needed to be remembered. Every turn was unique by demon. That's a high complexity budget, right?
I agree.
This is a big streamlining.
That makes it simpler. You just reroll 1s on your Aegis save, which is great for demons. That's a fantastic buff. Okay, let's keep on going. The hereditary spell is the same. So all these manifestations, basically all these lines through stuff, it's just crossing out all the greater dominion, the dominant stuff.
Well, there's a number that have just been fully removed.
Exactly,
right?
and
So
there's
Withering Vapor.
Withering's Vapors,
right? So
Cloven Hooves, Dexterous Tentacles, Charging Tentacles. I'll just keep going. Green Fire Eyes changed a little bit. You reroll natural 1s when the charge, range, and pursuit distance.
So there's a little bit of, kind of cleaning things up that were not used, maybe kind of adjusting. So overall, the overall manifestation list has shrunk.
Yes.
Right. And then even within those shrunken ones, it's gotten simpler.
Yeah, I agree. Keep going here. There's no changes here. Aura of Despair, the model gains accurate, which is interesting. And these are all just word stuff. Yeah. Okay, so that's all the upgrades.
I mean, some of those have changed materially, so worth looking at. But yeah, I think for the purposes of this review, long story short, fewer, a little bit more targeted, and simpler than before for manifestations.
Harbinger is the same. There's just some points adjustments here. So okay. The Deceiver gets an Aegis of 4 up now. It's offensive skill 8. And the Greater Dominion changed. Okay, so not a big change to the Deceiver. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this one was not seen as much.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it really wasn't.
You tried to give, I think, some buffs to this one.
The Maw, the Great Maw of Akan. Points value went up or
Big
down?
change here. I think that's slightly up.
Yeah.
But the strength 7 is a huge deal.
Yeah, that changes things.
Yeah.
That changes things. Because before it was strength 5, I think. It was strength 5. Yeah. That can really take out some model. It's still only AP 2. But you can really start doing damage to big models now, like monster models.
Especially with re-rolling 1s to wound.
Yep.
I mean, it's going to wound almost everything in the game on 2s.
2s with a re-roll, yeah.
Re-rolling 1s, so yeah, it changes its damage output significantly.
I love that. I love the Maw. I love the mechanic with the Devour mechanic. I think I want to see that more on the table. Anyway, the Miser. So half off, which was the half multi-wounds, is gone. And that's it. Yeah. And now it's 575.
I think it got cheaper. I think it got cheaper as a result of that. And yeah, I think it used to be more expensive. I'd have to double check, but yeah.
I thought they'd do more to the Miser. I hardly ever saw the Miser, so it's interesting. The Courtesan. It's now Strider. And the Razor Tentacles. It gets +3 attacks while engaged with flanker. Okay, so it no longer does the penetrating attack, so it's not as good against rank and file in the flank or rear. Now it's just still okay.
It can't kill 30 models.
Yeah, it can't like just blow up a rank and file unit like it could before. Interesting. That's interesting. I think we'll still see it fairly often, but it's just not as good as it was.
Yeah.
Huh.
It has AP4. It has, it has all these tricks about how fast it is and everything like that. So I still think this model will be seen. It's just lost some sort of peak performance against particular opponents.
And it actually helps out against single models because instead of area effect, it's just +3 attack. So it's getting 3 more attacks against single models.
9 attacks, strength 5, AP 4 against a single model. It's pretty beefy.
Yeah. Okay, the Omen. It's now discipline 10. Yeah. Whatever, it's demons. They don't care too much about discipline. Let's see.
Yeah, it can be nice in some cases, but yeah.
Moving on. The Sentinel loses third eye, which was at the start of each magic phase draw. This was the look at the flux card at the beginning of the turn instead of your magic phase. Again, this is taking down rule complexity, which I'm totally good for. It was everyone who played this like nearly always forgot to do this.
I easily forgot it 50% of the time.
Yeah.
And it's a super strong mechanic. I wish I hadn't, but I don't argue with taking it out.
Yeah. But what it does get is it gets to hold 6 Veil tokens instead of just 3, which is pretty cool.
Which is basically, that used to be something that you could buy, and now it's built in. Right?
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. All right, and the Scourge. The Scourge, nothing happened to it. Did it go up or down in points?
Good. Let me look that up. I think it. I can tell you in a minute. I can't remember. It's also in the summary at the end. But...
Yeah. I'll jump down there real quick and we'll take a look. Let's see here. The Vanandra's Scourge. It went down by 20 points.
Yes. And I think the reason why. Let's look at it real quick.
I think people. I don't know why it went down. People were often using it, but it was also very much a glass cannon. Like the right attacks against it cleaned it up, like poison, for instance.
Yeah, I think it could possibly be because you don't get to pass around the Dominion. That ignores parry is quite a strong Dominion in some cases. It could be that. Not quite sure.
Okay. Moving on to character mounts, nothing really changing here. Burning Wheel's no longer a light troop.
Single model, so.
Yeah, same with the Throne of Overwhelming Splendor. All right, core. I don't think there's many changes in here. Okay, Succubi. Previously, it ignored parry, but now it doesn't. But now it has the Smother.
Correct.
So against other rank and file or standard size models, it gets +1 to hit and +1 to wound. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah, this is just removing some complexity, but I think it's kind of a lateral move against units that had parry, but an improvement against others, right? So.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're going to see a lot more Succubi. That's a pretty good rule. Lemures are the same. Myrmidons are the same. Eidolons are the same. Hellhounds, they no longer ever have Hellish Growl. That was the one where you take a leadership check for something. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But they get
now they get this new
extra
support rule. So that means that they get more attacks from extra ranks, and I think they've also gotten cheaper, right? So
they've gotten cheaper, and also they have fear now, which is interesting. So they're still a good unit. That Hellish Growl thing often didn't proc very much, so this is fine. Threshing Engine is the same. Titan Slayer Chariot. It loses the Devastating Charge +2 advance rate.
Yeah.
And it gets maximized against Towering Presence.
Basically, it also gained advance 8, right? So it was 7 before, but basically what was happening was with that and Divining Snout, you could get it up to advance 11, so it had a 23-inch charge range. Now that settled down to 22 inches if you do that same thing. Oh no, sorry, and Divining Stout's gone away, so not even possible. But so essentially it just made your charges more consistent, but not extended their range, which I think was a nice middle ground.
That makes fine. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Mage Blight Gremlins, they changed a little bit here. When they enter the battlefield, the owner may choose to apply a special ambush. Oh, so this, it just aligns with the new rules in the greater rule book. Clot Fiends get that Smother rule, which is amazing. Ooh, I think we're gonna see a lot more Clawed Fiends and Succubi.
Clawed Fiends were, I think, pretty underrepresented in general, so this is
Yeah.
a nice buff to them. Hopefully we see them more.
Blaze, everything. I'm scrolling through here and everything's staying the same. Minor points changes, but everything's staying the same. Brazen Beasts are the same. Furies.
I think one thing I'll just highlight, I don't want to look at it, entry by entry, but, oftentimes the strength of an entry was dictated by the, what they could select, the manifestations that you could pay for, and they have changed quite a bit. So I'm sure that the Demon Legion community will figure out ways to break the new unhinging jar, whatever it is, right? I'm just funny.
There'll be ways to min-max it, yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
And that looks like about it. There's a lot of stuff changing in this book, but it's a lot of stuff's being chopped out of the book, which is fine. I think that smother rule sounds really, really good, but maybe that just be me. What do you think about the book as a whole?
I think positive. I think for Demon Legion's opponents, I mean, having piloted Demon Legions a couple of times, you spent half your time explaining what each of the manifestations did.
Yeah,
right? So
totally.
in terms of streamlining the experience for Demon Legion's opponents and Demon Legion's players, A+, I think a lot of improvements here. Power level, how the different combos can be broken, too early to say. I haven't dug into it in enough detail. But hopefully it just makes for a cleaner experience for both sides in Demon Legion's games.
I agree.
Best to remember.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to them also extending these changes to the Legion of Sin book, which is, I don't know when they're going to do the supplementary books, but I'm looking forward to that too. And let's jump on to my good friends, the Beast Herds. These are one of the books where there weren't very many changes. There's some interesting changes, but not very many. So we're not going to scroll through the book here. I'm just going to go all the way to the end and look at the design notes, the changelog. The first up is the Hereditary spell that no one used, is now interesting. I don't know if I'm going to call it good yet, but it's the unit gains Fearless, and they get a magical 8-inch move. What makes this interesting is now they are the only book in the game that can have 2 magical moves, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I think
And I get 1 magic phase.
Right. Witchcraft with Raven's Wing and Evocation.
Oh yeah, Dread Elves can do it too, but you never saw that. So Beasters get that, which is interesting. I could see people
And with Blackwing. So 3.
Yeah. Well, no, that's not a magical move. That's just extra charge range. But yeah.
No, I know.
Yeah. Interesting. I think we could see this. I don't know where I'd see this. I have to really think about this. This changes things because you never really use Dance Macabre with Beast Herds. When would you use a magical move with Beast Herds? We want stuff get around the flank. I mean, I don't know. Well, interesting. I have to think about that. The magic item Eye of Dominance, which previously was anything with any mount hit that character on a 6+ alone. Now the unit gains fear, the character gains fear, which is interesting, and also that character cannot be stomped. I think this is a great upgrade. This is a much better item now.
Yeah, I think that item was basically like either incredibly impactful or had no impact.
Yeah.
Right. It was just so binary. But this is much more sort of even.
No, it also makes sense because like often the problem with Beast Herds characters was characters on foot couldn't do anything because they were getting stomped to death. You throw this on one of your characters on foot and you can go take on a monster. So I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, centaurs. They were cavalry. Now they are beasts with tall and cannot be stomped. So basically, it only really, to my understanding, the only thing it really changes is DTs. They're now taking DTs in water and not taking DTs, or taking the lower level DTs in ruins. And forest, they're forest striders, so don't worry about the forest. So I don't know really why they chose to do this, but it's not that big of a change as far as I can tell. Cyclopses, their throw attack, the range went, I believe, down to 30 inches, but now they can march and shoot. So they can move 14 inches and throw the rock. I think this is the one combo where you would use the magical move a lot. You could march a Cyclops 14 inches, then magical move him 12, then magical move him 8. So you could like, and he could still throw his rock after all that.
Whoa. I hadn't thought of that. That's a long range.
I think that's an interesting combo there, is baiting people into you and then getting your Cyclops to magical move out of everyone's arc into the side and just continue throwing rocks on people. I think that's a potential combo with the new hereditary spell that I was thinking about. Gortax lose stubborn, which is interesting. That's pretty good. So like basically when they're such a beat stick that when they go through something, they really go through something, but that one time that they don't kill something immediately, that stubborn came in really useful. They're not as good against static res units like big rank and file units. It's interesting. It's interesting. Obscuring Fog went down 5 points. Eye of Dominance, it's now 30 instead of 45, but it's completely different. Sea of the Dark Force went up 10 points. Longhorn Herd additional models went up 1 point. Gortax went down because they lost Stubborn. And Cyclopses went up 5 points, what I'm assuming because that combo I'm talking about. So really, overall, not that big of change. Definitely the biggest change is the change to the Hereditary. It's now a magical move. I don't know how I feel about that. I think that's a cool combo with the Cyclopses.
It changes to Druidism.
And the changes.
Druidism also have a good impact. Yeah.
I agree. And I was thinking about that too. I think I still would take Druidism because Beast Herds have a magical armor up enchantment that gives a 4-up fortitude. And then they also have whatever Death Cheater that has a 4-up aptitude. So you can have two characters with a 4-up fortitude save, and then with the Druidism spell you can add on to that and give them a 3-up fortitude save. I think that's an interesting combo also. That saves makes your characters a little better. So very little changes. I think this is not even an upgrade. This is just a push for the Beast Herds. They're kind of right where they were before. I don't see metas changing a whole lot with Beast Herds, but it's fun to see. I've got a lot to think about with this magical move now. What can I do with a really cool magical move? I'm thinking long and hard about that. If you guys have any ideas, put it in the comments below. I'd love to hear about it. Yeah, and that's it. That's all we've got. We're gonna take a short intermission, and then after this, what's Jesus? I forgot his fake name. Frumious is reviewing the Infernal Dwarves and the Dwarven Holds with me, and thank you, Vespacian, for joining us. And we're excited to see those Highborn Elves back on the table. Hello, everyone. We're back, and we're now reviewing the Infernal Dwarf and the Dwarven Holds book, and I have a special guest, Frumious. Tell us about your little company, Frumious.
Frumious Fantastical Foundry. So I create starter boxes, a bunch of 9th Age movement trays, doohickeys, all kinds of things. A lot of 3D printing stuff. So
all of your 3D printing needs. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will put that link in the description below. Frumious also runs the Infernal Zoo tournament, which has been going on for 10 years now. Fantastic. I try to go every year. But you know what? He is a well-skilled Infernal Dwarf player. So let's go ahead and get in the book. Here we go.
Okay.
So the new Infernal Dwarf book, Frumious had like a total of 30 minutes to review this book. So we're going to go through it quickly. But actually, you know what? I don't want to start at the front of the book right here. I want to start in the back, which is just outlining all the changes. And we'll go through all the changes when we come to them. So let's look at here. First note is just clarifying of rules. Onyx Core is strength always set to 6. Onyx Core was often used and it got to a higher strength before, right?
You couldn't get. It was hard to get up to a strength 7 because you needed a flaming sword. No, you couldn't really do it. They've been trying to do this for a while. This is just kind of a clarification more. It's pretty hard to do.
Oh, so it's actually better now. You can put them on just on a hand weapon and it's going to go up to strength 6 normally.
It's always on and
I see.
Infernal weapon. So
before it was set to strength 6 and now it's always set to strength 6.
Yeah.
All
But
right.
even though it was still hard to get it to 7, I'm not sure how. Maybe some allied game or something.
So flintlock axes are now act like halberds in close combat. So that's a little bit of a change, right?
It's +1 AP basically. It's nice.
That's not too bad. Yeah, that's not too big of a change for the flintlock axes. They're still
Yeah,
white.
they were +1. They were always +1 strength. They just didn't have the AP with the halberd. Now they're just like a halberd, which is like what they were a while ago. So it's kind of a throwback.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's nice.
Let's see. Overlord loses arrogance, and I looked this up. Arrogance with a special rule that means he always passed fear checks. So now he doesn't always pass fear checks. I don't think that's that big of an impact in the game, but now he could potentially be affected by fear.
Yeah, LD10. So it's a little bit of a drag. Not a
Yeah.
huge deal.
Not LD, Discipline 10. Discipline 10.
Discipline 10. It used to, that rule has changed so many times. It used to be you could taunt people and make them charge you and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The latest one, I think it was just for fear. Now this went away completely. So
Yeah. Infernal Warriors lost fight an extra rank with Ziggurat regulars and now have access to great weapons instead. So let's go up to Infernal Warriors really quick. Ziggurat Warriors... Ziggurat regulars, I'm sorry. Did you ever use that? That was an option to turn the rank and file guys to have attack an extra rank with great weapons, that sounds pretty badass.
people did that. It's not really my style, but it was definitely good. And you had a giant brick of guys that fight next to eighth grade weapons. So it was pretty well used for those combat-oriented cores. So this is a nerf to that.
Yeah, it's a nerf. They can still get the great weapons. They just can't do. They just lose in the fight in extra rank. I mean, I
don't like.
I wish I would have seen that more.
Run giant brick.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Keep talking.
Let's see here.
I don't normally run giant bricks. Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
There's like a delay I think I can see from my picture in the talk, so it's like a 2-second. We'll sort it out. So I don't normally run giant bricks of them anyway, but people did. So to me, I don't like a lot of like 30 Infernal Warriors just because the dwarfs are just so slow. You just get avoided when you do stuff like that. So it's fine. It's fine with me. But it's a nerf.
Yeah, that makes sense. Next up is Vassal Chieftains is no longer among us. All vassal units have normal champions instead. So no more of those special champions. Yeah,
you lose a lot of the range. That was nice to have, and the extra wound on the champion, which was we'll have to explain that every third battle or so. And someone just gets a challenge like kill the champion. I'm like, no, he's got a wound. So that's a nerf. I would have liked them to see them put the Hobgoblin Chieftain back in the character section if they do this, because that's where he was before. They put him into this position. So it's nice to have that range of heroes, but I can see why they wanted to simplify this particular role because it was pretty unique with the range. And a warrior's good at +1 wound on their champion, but again, it's a bit of a nerf here.
Okay. Torox, all Torox
used to have a crazy leadership range. You used to have a crazy leadership range on your cavalry because you had a guy in a tower with a towering presence with 18-inch leadership bubble, plus 6 inches to the cav unit, so 24-inch leadership bubble to your fast cav was pretty nuts.
Yeah, definitely. Looks like all Torox are now tall, so that includes regular Torox and the Torok. Forgot the name, the big Torox.
The Anointed and the Enforcers. The Anointed are the big ones.
Yeah. Let's see here. Where are you? Turok Enforcers. Yeah, they're now tall. So they were standard beasts that are now tall. It's just this. Now they're and then the Turok Anointed are large, tall now. I mean, this is kind of good for like get artillery weapons shooting at them, but I don't see a big deal out of it. It's harder to hide them now.
Yeah, it doesn't help them a whole lot. I don't know if they gave it. Did they give it to the characters? Are they tall as well?
Yes.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, your character can now combo charge out of a unit or something, or your wizard has a better range if you do the two wizard, which nobody has done often. But it's okay for that, but it's not really a big game changer. And yeah. Nothing else is at large other than the incarnates.
The other good thing is the Turok Enforcers that you can give blunderbusses to can now shoot over other standard size models.
Oh yeah, that's good actually. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I've tried to make it work a while, but you can't get enough. You need like a volume for blunderbuss because they always hit on a 5. So getting like 5 shots is just too random.
Yeah.
To count on anything, and then putting all those points in a giant block of enforcers has never really worked out. But interesting.
Yeah. All right, Kadim Titan, the Walking Volcano now has 6 attacks, and the Walking Earthquake lost the offensive defensive modifier. So let's take a look at that.
Yeah, that makes the shooty guy really more useful now. I think you're gonna see him a lot. I used to like him before because I liked having a rocket battery that can move around that's threatening. Mm-hmm. And now with 6 attacks, he can stand up for himself against other monsters. So that's a really good choice now. It went up 30 points, which is probably should have gone. It might go up a little more. The volcano now only just gives you an extra D3 grind attacks, and it's cheaper. So the other one, the earthquake, is just not gonna. Seems to be less attractive now that they've done this 2 things to it, double 2 strikes against it.
Yeah, I mean it has the same volcanic embrace D3 plus 1, and then the volcano has just a volcanic embrace 1.
Yeah, so you're just losing D3 volcanic embrace, which are great against armored targets, and pretty useless against unarmored targets. But yeah, so it's gonna be hard not to always want the shooty guy.
All right. Where are we? Yeah, okay, so this is a game-wide change they made. All conditional Aegis against flaming attacks are 3 up instead of 2 up. There's no more 2 up against flaming attacks. So that's a game-wide thing. I think we talked about that earlier. The gunnery team has 1 more armor with shield, and also gets 3 grind attacks. Why are we making Infernal Dwarf artillery better in combat? I don't get it.
It's a weapons team that people just didn't take very often. And it ended up, since it has such a short range, it ended up in combat quite a bit. So if you take a shooting thing that only gets to shoot half the game that might misfire, it's a bit of a risk, unless you're just trying to max out.
Yeah. All right, last.
So it was D3 already, so it gets 1 more armor save, and then it gets a guaranteed 3 grinds.
Yeah, and you're often putting that thing in the front lines of a unit, right? That can jump into a unit, so I guess that makes sense. Yeah. Slaves have lost enslaved porters, and it gained March 12 and unstable. Whoa, that's weird.
Yeah.
Let's look at that.
Weird.
That's
so before they were like a buff unit where they would give you soft cover, or they would give you real ones to hit, and you had to kind of play around. You had to kind of carefully position them to make that happen. I like them in some lists because they were just a cheap block unit that we could just throw away, and people like to fight. Some people would attack it and like, oh cool, you killed this and the shackled slaves. With unstable, it's interesting to throw them up and block people. I don't know, other than having a giant slave, like if you had like 5 or 6 units and you just like shoved in people's faces, I think they might put a limit on them pretty quick, because that's a tactic. Having one unit isn't really interesting, but
Yeah, like just filling out your whole core of blocks of 40 shackled slaves can be interesting, because it's just
so now you're undead. Yeah,
it's just a great tar pit, right? Because they're res 4, so they're better than the zombies or skeletons.
yeah. Their weapon skills, offense and defense, is pretty low, but you can give them paired weapons.
You can give him a shield. You can give him a shield and get parry.
Yeah.
That's good. I think that's a big upgrade. Okay, so let's look at the points changes here. There's a good amount on the screen. I think the biggest one is the Kadim Titan point change, which you said is about 30 points, which is kind of the biggest point change on here. Shackled Slaves went down 20 points. Banner of the Thrice Branded went down 40 points. Oh, that's a magic item that changed. I think we skipped over that. Banner of the Thrice Branded. I don't know what it was before, but basically now, if you get charged at the flank or the rear, you can do a leadership roll and reform immediately. So basically, you can't get flanked or reared.
Is it flank or rear now? After charging the other, it's just charge in the fate form. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It was kind of a thing for Blunderbuss, where you wanted to give it to them and march up in a wide formation and get a bunch of shots and then rank up. And as much as I tried to always make the Blunderbuss guys work, it never really panned out for me in the long run. I always dropped them.
We're definitely thinking about it two different ways. You're thinking about going wide shooting, then standing and shooting, and then they get into you and you get to reform up into ranks. That works also. I was thinking about
the end of the charge save.
Yeah, I was thinking about you shove them out there and put them in a bad position, let someone charge your flank, and then you can instantly reform to face them in the front.
That's sneaky. I like that.
Yeah.
They lost the -1 to hit and modify for stand and shoot, which they used to not. Now they get it back. So
yeah.
That's why it's cheaper.
All
There's
right,
another item change too. It was the Kadim bindings. They didn't list it in the summary, but the Kadim bindings now you can put it on Towering Presence. So you can give your Wizard and Bold parry. Or you can give him a great weapon and shield. So I don't know. I guess the little bull has Towering Presence. So you can give that guy a better armor save with a great weapon. Kind of makes the wizard. The Overlord I don't think would care about it, but it's interesting choice for a prophet. Now.
That is interesting. So overall thoughts on the changes. I think it's overall a little bit of a nerf. Not a bad nerf, but I think Infernal Dwarves needed a small nerf.
Statistically, they were underperforming compared to their armies. I think they were below 50%. We all look at those new recruit stats now. But I think this is a nerf, and the points we'll see, because I don't see any great changes other than just some units are more viable than others. The overall meta lists are probably similar to what they were before.
Yeah, I agree.
Although there's another change too. The Overlord, his second weapon is half price because he has to take 2 weapons, which just makes me feel bad for Flammy coding new recruit, because that sounds like it's going to be a pain to code.
Yeah.
When he has to recruit for that. Poor Flammy. They were thinking of him, that's for sure, when they did that. So it's a little bit of nerf. I'm not upset or anything. I'm a big fan of it all working out at the end of January and points and stuff. So, but they weren't really at the top of the armies before. I don't think they're going to go back there with these types of changes.
Gotcha. All right. Well, let's move on to the Dwarven Hold book. Let's see here. Again, I'm going to jump right to the back where the change log is. Let's see here. Rune of Residence is removed. This is the rune that I didn't see it very often when I was playing Dwarves, but this is basically the one that doubles up the rune when you hit them with when you successfully cast a wound in them, it bounces and goes to a second unit also. I didn't see it happen very much, so I don't think it's that big of a change.
Too hard to pull off. Yeah, it never happened.
Yeah. Let's see here. Sturdy
They
stream.
forgot to add delete spell eater rune.
The what?
They forgot to add deleting spell eater rune. So next when you guys fix this, make sure you put that in there.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, why didn't that show up? I don't understand. Some streamlining of rooms, the steady aim rule. We all know what steady aim does now. The Rune of the Forged Aegis is now at 3++, which is, we talked about this game wide. We're just doing 3 up against flaming attacks. Now battle runes can be taken also by King, Thane, and Engineer. So battle runes were the spells that that runic smiths could take. Now the characters can take 1 apiece. So this is kind of a change. You definitely might see lists now where runesmiths aren't taken at all.
Thane spam for sure. Yeah, that's bad news for runesmith. It's a huge buff. I can only hope that it's going to take some kit off of the king, so he's it doesn't count against his magic item allowance, so never mind. Yeah, this is bad news for everyone else.
let's look at where it says in the unit entry here. Hold on. King. Yeah, it just says up to 1 battle rune. It's just a straight up option for the 30 points. Interesting. Yeah, so I think this is.
Yeah, I mean, AP is harder to come by these days with the loss of the banner, which they didn't get anyway. But having the runesmith, which gives your unit an extra AP, I believe. So that's a value if you have a combat unit like a sword and board, and you want to give them AP 2, their strength 4. So they do have a combat role, and but Thanes are pretty good. So having a Thane with a battle rune is better.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. Rune of Resilience now can no longer stack. That was pretty common. You see the double Rune of Resilience on a character, so he's toughness something crazy.
Yeah.
There's still,
generally you really messed up your dispel phase if that happens to you, but yeah.
This is not that big of a change. Dwarves often cast runes twice, but they never get through twice usually. So, no big deal. Greybeard is streamlined with new root hold line. We already know about that. Rangers gain quick to fire.
That's cool. Rangers are one of those units I put in every dwarf list because I just like them, and people are like, why do you do that? Like, Rangers, man, they've got great weapons and crossbows. Like, how could you? And they scout. Like, how could you not want that? And I'm like, okay, Alex, whatever. So I like it just because I think it makes them cooler and maybe a little more fielded, because I haven't seen them in a long time, actually. People kind of.
Yeah, I've seen a few lists. All Vanguard lists. Yeah, I've seen a few lists where they kind of act as regular shooting. Regular guys with crossbows, but they make them rangers because they want to choose where they deploy after they see the opponent deploys. Use them as scouts, but not scout them like in the regular way. I've seen that a few ways. I mean, this might be cool, or you can push them forward and still continue to shoot with the same efficiency. Beyond that, I don't think it's a big change.
So they have crossbows, right? So they have quick to fire and unwieldy. Does that make them just -1 shoot?
Oh, that's a very good question.
But you give them throwing axes too, but those are quick to fire. And then I don't think they have handguns, but
it depends on the wording of quick to fire. Does it say it ignores all or moving and shooting bonuses or debuffs? I don't know. I can look it up in a second.
There's 2 rules.
Let's see here. I'm going to do that really quick. Rulebook. Quick to fire. So quick to fire says... Of course, I can't get to that. There we go. The attack doesn't suffer the -1 to hit from moving and shooting. So it's still -1 from unwieldy, from the way I read it.
But they never had a -1 to hit because they were -2 to hit for unwieldy. It's a further -1. So I guess that just puts them at -1.
Yeah, I think so. Interesting.
That's a lot of complexity right there that I just added into that change.
Forge Wardens. This is a big change. You can now do a max of 16 models. The ward save against fire is a 3+ again. 3+ to aim, 2 shots, strength 4. Before it was something, I don't know, different. You never saw Forge Wardens, and then Ben Kerr just decided to use them in like every single list he had. special.
Yeah, they were good. The Fire Ward was nice situationally too.
Forge Wardens.
He was nice. He told me what they did when I was playing him, and I was like, all right, move my cards right at me. And then, and then I charged them.
They become a
And I
little
was
more
like,
viable. Yeah. They're only hitting
Do they
on
always
3s.
hit?
Before they were always hit on 2+.
Yeah. And that's just aim 3.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think we'll definitely start to see more of these in Dwarf lists because they're pretty good. 2 Strength 4 AP 0 shots is pretty good.
They're good. I think people can't sort out what the blunderbuss really is. This is like the Dwarf blunderbuss, which is different than the Infernal Dwarf blunderbuss, basically. So it's like competing design philosophies and what a blunderbuss type thing really does. But 2 Strength 4, 3+ aim seems pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see here. The cannon loses clipped wings. This is a sad day for cannons.
Okay, can you explain? This has gone back and forth. I'm stuck in the rumor. So cannons all lost clip wings, but then somebody told me they added it to the main rule for cannons to put it back. For +1 to wound versus flying.
Well, let's look
did
at the
that
rulebook.
happen, or like now I can't sort it out. What really happened with the rulebook change and the.
Let's find out here. Let's find out.
But the price did go down here, so it makes me think it really did lose the +1 to wound flying things.
Oh, the additional wound on the multi-wound.
Yeah. Right. It wasn't +1 to wound. Still.
I don't see it
+1.
in the canon rules.
Okay. So maybe it is. This is a good change for dragons.
Yeah, this is a great change for dragons, which I'm surprised to see, you know?
Now you could probably fit another cannon, so maybe not so great. I didn't see a whole lot of flying monsters. There's a lot of single monsters on foot that are really good. It seems like that those are a little out of style these days.
All right, so moving on. Points changes. Deep Watch, the core starting unit dropped by 20 points. I think Deep Watch were still pretty, and additional models dropped by a point, so they're pushing Deep Watch. Rangers went up.
Don't
Forge Wardens went up. They are really good. And then the cannon went down by 15 points, which makes sense for losing that extra wound. So I think
15 points though.
Yeah, I think overall this is an upgrade for the Dwarves, but it's a pretty minimal upgrade.
Yeah, I'm gonna say a really good upgrade. Actually,
Really?
I think we should all play Dwarves now. most especially since when I've seen from other armies, they generally got toned down a bunch. Infernal Dwarf, like losing the ward save and the champion and all this stuff, and even the Dread Elves got toned way down. Vermin Swarm, we won't talk about them right now. The Saurian Ancients are a little better, but everyone else just kind of got dialed back a notch, and these guys got cranked up. So I think overall, big picture, it's really good for Dwarves.
All right. Well, that's thank you for coming on, Frumious. That's awesome. I love to have some dwarf perspective on these rule changes. This is part 2, so we're still looking forward to part 3, which should come out in like a week or so. Yeah, thank you so much, Frumious, and we'll see you next time.
My pleasure. See you soon at the North American Team Championships with Canadian Run. So next weekend.
This weekend coming up, we're
Battle
all
on.
excited.
Yeah. See you soon, man.